this waitress, her grandmother came through with specific messages and names, and and she lost it, and she was very grateful for the experience, to the point where she ended up going to different people that night, waitresses, and they would come over to the table like, okay, do you need more water? Yeah. Like, I'm not going to be reading you right now.
Do you need more water? Do you have another message for me? I want to welcome Carly to the studio.
Thank you.
You are a medium.
Yes.
You are in the LA area.
Yes, LA County. Yes, closer to Orange County too, but yeah, a little bit of both.
Well, welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
We've known each other for a few years.
Yes.
I come to you once a year, I think, or maybe twice a year. So we do a health check on the company and myself.
Exactly, yes.
Spiritual health check. Carly, how long have you been doing the mediumship?
Well, it depends on what level.
Okay.
So I've had this gift since I was a little girl.
Okay.
And I started channeling people without really knowing what channeling was. As a child, you don't know about a lot of different things unless you're told what it is that you're going through. Officially, like knowing that I'm channeling somebody, maybe from my teens. But before that, as a little girl, I would feel things, and I would sense spirit, and I didn't know that I was actually channeling somebody.
So what were some of the things that you would actually sense before they actually happened? Like, or sense that you thought was your own mind versus information that's coming to you?
Right. Well, in Spanish, there's a word called acercamiento. And I would always describe it that way. I would always tell my mom, I'm having an acercamiento. In English, it's called closeness.
Got it.
So I always felt that something was approaching me, some energy. And that's why I coined it acercamiento, closeness. Something's getting close to me. And the emotion that I would feel is sort of like what people would maybe connect with the word anxiety. But it was not that. It was paired with a knowing of some sort.
Got it. So when you were having this and you were talking to your mum about this, how was her reaction? Was she a believer? Was she into this world, or where was her mind?
I was blessed to have been born into a family with people that did this prior to me. Wow. In fact, on my father's side, my aunt had this gift. And so my entire family on my dad's side embraced it because of what she went through. And interestingly, a lot of people in that family are what I would consider very analytical, very logical, very skeptical people. So that changed them. So I think it eased my way into this experience.
It's interesting because my grandfather also was involved in healing my mom's side. So he would do healing with a knife, wherever he was doing some odd stuff. And it was me getting an insight into this world too. That's kind of where the family traits come in.
Yeah, it helps.
Yes.
It helps. I think when you're the first, that's when people start questioning because they don't know a lot of the behind the scene things.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So when you were growing up, did you think that you would fall into this line, or was this something that you were trying to go for growing up? Like, did you have mind like, I want to be an accountant, or I want to be, was this something that you had in your mind before you started going more into this?
Interesting. And, when I was growing up, I knew that I wanted to, I embraced it first off. I embraced it, but because of schooling and because of, secular worldly concerns, work, school, and I really pushed it aside for many years.
Got it.
And what I saw was something very interesting. The more I pushed it, the worse these acercamientos got. So when I started to feel, I would feel these sensations, it was almost like I had a lot of energy bottled up inside me. That, when I felt something, it was super strong and I couldn't really release it.
Yes.
I did that for the first few years of my life. I graduated high school and then went for my my BA credential, master's, and then pursued my doctorate.
Got it. Wow.
And during that time, I concentrated on really developing on the side, but it was very difficult, with
when your normal life is taking over and it's the normal of what's normal to other people, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yes.
So I really didn't have an opportunity to dive into this until I would say maybe at the start of my master's degree. When I had more time. And at that point, I had a little baby. Oh. So, it was very difficult too.
Yes.
The world takes over, bills and your work.
Yes.
But I always knew that I had to come back to this. And I do embrace it.
So it's like the trusting, right? So the more you were trying to go into a different direction, the more you're being pulled back into where the universe or the spirit is trying to take you back to where you're going, right?
Exactly. Right. Yes. And trying to let me know in the way that I could understand, like, okay, the more you neglect this,
yes,
the more you are going to feel, and the stronger the sensation you get when you do feel that quote unquote anxiety.
Got it. So when you were going for your doctorate and stuff, obviously, so this has pulled you away from this, or somewhat.
Exactly.
Now, was that taking you where you thought you were going to be something else? I mean, obviously you have your other job, and would you think that you were going to go and be something specifically? Like, were you, when you're pushing this away from yourself, like, was the normal just like a railroad track? And sorry, I'm beating around the bush. I'm just trying to make it easier.
Yeah.
Is it like a railroad track where it's just forcing you into the direction you're going in, where you really don't have a choice but to do this?
Well, interestingly, what I chose to do was psychology and counseling.
Okay.
so
that can play a part when the intuition is coming in, right?
Absolutely. And, it's interesting because throughout my career, it's interesting because if I'm with a client,
okay,
a spiritual, like a session, a reading,
yes,
I tend to use a lot of my skills also in counseling psychology and, career counseling and all that within that realm.
Wow.
And when I'm in the other realm, that's when I really have to pull back, because in that environment, I can't freely say, well, I'm sensing this and that. And, you have to really draw the line. But when I'm behind my desk, I can feel so much with so many people, and I just have to hold back.
Wow. That really is it's a great combination. It really is a great combination of being able to use the skills that you've taken from the normal work society or the normal society. And I'm not sure how to break that up, but it's interesting how you put those two skills together. And I know how it can make a big difference. It can make a difference, especially when you're feeling the other people's feelings too.
Exactly.
So back to how you were growing up. So your family was accepting of this.
Yes.
But now, were they encouraging you with the schooling, like to do your other stuff too? Like, were they saying it's a side thing? Were they saying you should focus on this? Was it the encouragement that you were getting?
It was primarily schooling. It was all schooling. It was all, pursue your degrees and do this and, get that job. And, it was that. The spiritual part of it had always been welcomed, but there was never any talk about how are you going to, put that to use in your life, outside of my own self. It wasn't until I took the initiative to really say, and it just happened to be, I don't remember my first client, who it was or how it happened, but since then it's been, decades full of, this beautiful circle of people that I know. That I've grown to.
So when you were finding these people, like in the beginning, people who were coming to you in the first one, was it surprising to you of what you were knowing too? Like you're saying, wow, like I'm telling you this is what I'm feeling, and this is actually magically coming to fruition. Was that something that was coming up, which was probably exciting to you too?
Yes, absolutely. And see, people that ask me, how do I develop this?
Yes.
What do I do? And I always go back to what happened to me. And, I always tell people, holding back when you're feeling something, when something comes to mind, we make the mistake of rationalizing it, of, the secular, the physical body, your physical brain. You start thinking, well, why am I about to say this?
Yes.
And you question yourself, and you don't allow yourself to actually say things that you feel. It wasn't until I one day said, I have to tell you, when I, socially, drink, and that's when, I feel more relaxed. Okay. And at the very beginning, that's when I would feel like, I'm happy, I'm feeling great, I'm feeling very relaxed and comfortable. And I started noticing that I would just freely pick up on stuff and say it. And people would start going, oh my gosh, how did you know that? And interestingly, at the beginning, it would shock me as well. Well, how did I know that? But I started to notice that the more I allowed myself to feel, the more I started developing.
Right. So it was the liquid courage, huh?
The liquid courage, yes. And now I don't need that.
so with the feeling, a lot of people don't trust themselves.
Right.
And we think, like what you were describing, like we think with our head versus feeling with our soul or feeling with our heart.
Right.
And so do you feel like it's like everybody should feel more with what they feel? Like just general society, because we believe just in our mind, what our mind sees.
Right. I always encourage, I tell every single person I come across that, we start discussing this, we all have intuition. We all have it. Everybody, even the most rational, analytical, skeptical person out there, they have a certain amount of this. The difference between someone that develops and someone that doesn't is just that. That's the key. It's allowing yourself to not, allowing yourself to feel and to not question the things that come to your mind.
Yes.
And I always tell people, start with your own self. You don't have to read another person. We all have these gut feelings.
Yes.
Like, gosh, for some reason, I just don't feel like getting on that freeway today.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get on, you don't listen to your gut, and you get rear-ended. Yeah. So start by that. And I always tell people it's great to it's great to journal. It's great to look back at your day and go, this is what I felt and this is what happened.
Yes.
But people don't take that time sometimes.
Yeah. I think it's the society railroading them, right? Because it's like, I have to go to work, I have to do this, I have to get these reports done, I have to do this, and then when I come home, I have to actually make this food, and then I have to do this. And I think it's the physical world actually occupying their minds.
Right.
Like they're really so occupied where it's, how do you hear yourself?
Exactly.
You can't, right?
Exactly. No, you can't. And I always tell people too, it's like exercising. The number one excuse people use is, I don't have time.
Yes.
But with only 15, 20 minutes a day, it makes a big difference.
Yes.
The same thing happens with meditation, with prayer, with just sitting by yourself and just just collecting your thoughts and allowing yourself to just exist.
Yes.
I do that several times a day before readings. It's important. Without that, I would not be able to initiate a reading. That centers me, it grounds me, and it gives me that extra bit of energy that I need to really, give of myself to the next person.
Yes. So, when someone comes to you, so you do it a few different ways, right? Because before they even come to you, you've already written down everything that it's a starting point of you writing down before that, right?
Yes. Yes.
So how does that work? So you write it down before, but you also, now I've seen you doing cards too, but they're not normal cards. You do playing cards. You don't do like normal tarot cards.
Yes. Well, I started off with tarot. Absolutely. Okay. Yes. The traditional Rider-Waite, tarot. I use some French cards, and they date back to the time of Napoleon.
Okay.
Yes, and
these are the playing cards, right?
They do have they have smaller cards within the cards.
Oh,
absolutely.
Interesting. Okay.
It's embedded in the card.
Got it.
And see, there's a beautiful story about that. Really quickly, I'll share with you. In the time of Napoleon, there was this very famous woman who used to do this for him and used to guide him and tell him what was coming. But back then, this was taboo, just like it is, nowadays in, many places. So what they did, and this woman, she designed this deck so that it could look like playing cards.
Oh,
so that if someone were to walk in, they're just playing, bridge or poker, whatever it may be.
Just
Absolutely.
start throwing chits around.
And yes, exactly. Well, and it's interesting because now, when I'm asked a question, yes or no, I look at it, and when I read, there are sometimes I do have like a full house on there, and I'm like, look, you just got a full house. It is a yes, a unanimous, absolutely yes. So it's the cards are beautiful in that sense. But you're right. I do begin by doing prayer and meditation, and before I even connect with the person, I already know exactly what it is they're going through, what their what their topics are of need at that point.
Yes.
And that I do because I want to create trust with somebody that I've never even connected with.
Yes. Yeah. So with me, like a lot of my time, it's business. Mm-hmm. So when I come to you, it's business, and we look at like what's happening with the business. Should we make these moves in the business? For me, it's like if I can get a little bit of guidance as a CEO of a company, it helps me make a better decision. And it's interesting, you're going back to the Napoleon days, but a lot of the leaders actually had mystics or intuitives who would actually help them, guide them. So I think even with old kings, whether it's Arthur and Merlin and different ones, right?
Yes. And you'd be surprised how often that happens now, even with law enforcement and other, agencies, big agencies.
Yes.
They won't advertise that, but they definitely use our services. When they find someone good, they will tend to also look at that as, an option.
Yes. It was like the CIA, I think it was the CIA back in World War II, I think they used remote viewers. And they would use remote viewers to see where the Germans were coming from or try to predict what's about to happen next. I think the CIA had a program in that. I think Russia had a program in that. Right. Just using remote viewers where everyone has the intuition, but for some reason, a lot of the world is kept in the dark for the intuition that they really have.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. That reminds me of a situation I had with one of my clients. She had her mom pass away, and her mom took me to her home in Brazil, where she had something she wanted to gift to her daughter. And her daughter, being a little skeptical, rational, analytical, I told her, and I described the home, the armoire, the second drawer, everything. And she actually took this trip to Brazil. She came back with that necklace. And, her life changed, the way she perceived the afterlife and what happens once we pass.
Yeah, I think it's helpful for people. So when you see people coming to you and they're looking for information, how do you see them being stuck where they are, and the information that you give them, how do you see it affecting their lives? Like, why is the information coming in? Why is it they have to have it?
Right. Well, so what I do is guide. And I always tell people, God has given us free will.
That's right.
So, what I see is what would happen if you pursue certain steps and if you allow certain things to happen and you continue making certain decisions. We all have the right to change that. So I always tell people, and I make that very clear, that, they can completely alter that which I see by taking steps back or by taking lateral steps that perhaps, and it benefits them, because they know what's coming. They, if I tell someone, look, in 3 weeks, I see this happening. But when it does, do not stress, because it will have, a positive outcome because of A, B, and C.
So do you find that some people need to learn their lessons by, like if you say, hey, don't stand in front of the yellow bus, and they need to stand in front of the yellow bus to be hit by it, do you find that some people are being pushed to just feel the experience of what they're supposed to experience?
Absolutely. It reminds me of another client. So she comes to me, and I read her, and I said, look, there's a road trip you're going to be taking very soon, within 1 to 2. My 1 to 2s oftentimes can be 1 to 2 weeks. Well, in her case, she confirmed it was 1 to 2 days. So I said, please be very careful. I see a speeding ticket for you. Please be careful. Okay. Yeah. So I warned her. I didn't, a few hours passed, maybe the next day, she texted me. She was so excited. She said, guess what, Carly? I was in the middle. She was driving east toward like Texas or someplace. And she said, I just got a speeding ticket.
She was proud of it.
She was so elated. She was happy. And the reason was, she said, well, everything else you told me is, I'm going to watch out for it but the speeding ticket really didn't ruin her day.
Wow.
But she needed to live through that to learn something.
Yeah, like to get the confirmation, not only that you've told her this, but, I have to experience actually getting that ticket and realize, oh my God, I should never do it again.
Exactly, right? Exactly, yes.
So a lot of the times when people are coming to you, is it the reason, I know because you do, not only is it the normal readings, but it's also medical too, right?
Yes.
How does that play a part? Like, is it the same level of information coming to you that would point out that, I have a pain, something's wrong with the arm, or was it more deeper stuff than that?
It's a lot deeper. So oftentimes during prayer and meditation, I will begin to feel some of the ailments that this person has, whether it be abdominal, my heart. There's been times when I even channel someone and I can't breathe, and I feel that it's emphysema. Yep. As opposed to, I don't know, some other thing, right?
Yes.
And so there are times when I start to feel that, or I get a very bad headache. And so I will relay that to the client, and we will, discuss the health, whatever I do see. When I was a little girl, I would go to my aunt's. My aunt had a business. It was like a little gift candle shop in the front. But, she did readings as well. That's all she did. And so I would, I would close my eyes and I would put my hands over my eyes where you could just see all black. And I would have a person just standing in front of me. And I would be able to see shades, around their body. And I would describe, okay, I see it right here. They would have a chart for me.
Yes.
I see a shade right here, and it would end up being like the pancreas or something else. So that would help my aunt guide, her readings. Exactly.
With this, like a lot of people get very fearful as well, right?
Yes.
Because, when I had done it, a lot of people stayed away from me thinking it was witchery or wizardry or whatever you want to call it. So do you find that people don't understand a normal person?
Absolutely.
Just being normal.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, let me give you another example. And
this
happened very recently.
Today.
Oh my gosh. This happened to me very, very recently, maybe about last week, I think. So, without using names or anything, so I have this couple that I knew, right? The woman who was about 48 years old, she passes away. Okay. The husband, who is more analytical, logical, skeptical, I don't believe in any of this type of thing, right?
The normal male role, right?
Exactly, the normal, yes, exactly. Well, he, she passed away, we had her services, and that was that. Well, I happened to be at home, and I felt her. And just out of the blue, she tells me, there is something going on today, something special with one of my kids. It's something extraordinary, right? I'm with them. I just wanted to share that with you. And so I reached out to the husband and I said, what's going on today? Because this person was here. She came through and her message was she's with, her son. Something is going on. He confirmed it. There was something extraordinary going on, very happy day for them. I had no idea about that. But then he said, I don't feel comfortable you reaching out to my wife because then you are interrupting her peace. And I said, no. I'm not, no, she came to me, she interrupted me. If anybody interrupted
there was an argument brewing, huh?
Okay. So, and I'm always very empathetic with people that don't understand how this works.
Yes.
I have to be. But I clearly explained to this person that, no, I am the one being, and I don't want to say the word interrupted, but in essence it is. I may be doing something else and all of a sudden, something comes through.
Yeah.
So that's an example of having to explain to someone that is not in this world how things work.
Yeah, because I think that with the male view, they'll just try to also justify it too, right? To close it down. No. But this is what it is. And when I came in, I think I went like this, and that means I had gone to the gym.
Exactly.
So they're trying to justify it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
But I think that's the human mind, the mechanism of the human mind trying to protect itself from what it doesn't understand.
Right.
Got it.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. And it is a scary, it's, and I don't want to say scary, but for a lot of people, it is an unknown world.
Yes.
So I don't blame their degree of I guess, hesitation to be open to it.
Got it. So it's like when people come to your house, they're not expecting dolls lying around. So you have a normal little dog. It's nothing crazy going on inside there, because that's what people would think, right?
Exactly. Oh, yes. No, quite the opposite. If you walk into my home, you would never even think, right? Yeah. Well, same with the person. I would say a good 85-90% of my clients have never met me, because it's pretty much remote.
That's right.
They live in other countries, all parts of the U.S., and so they don't even know what I look like. And I make it a point, to on Venmo and other places, I'll put a little picture of a puppy or whatever. I keep myself very, I guess, removed, physically from what I do. So I've had clients ask me, "What do you look like?" This is how I picture you. And in fact, I had one the other day who said, "My friends and I have a bet going on. Some of them think that you're like this and like that, and I think, so how are you?" I'm like, okay, just wait, and I'll show you a podcast soon.
You're going to have to do pictures and start sending out with your signature and sending out those pictures.
Yeah, but some of them do know, because I encounter them at restaurants, or I'll just go up to a few people and just say, hey, you know what? But a lot of them I don't know. I've never met in person.
Yeah. So a lot of this is you trust what happens. Mm-hmm. So you trust where people come to you. So when people find you, the fact that they find you for the right reason, right? So when people are coming to you, of how they find you, because a lot of your stuff is more word of mouth than any advertising.
Absolutely. In fact, it's only word of mouth, unless I approach someone. Like the other night, my husband and I went out to dinner, and our waitress, who happened to be very analytical, logical, that kind of thing, her grandmother came through. Oh. Now, I have also been given the gift to know who to reach out to and who not to.
Got it.
With the prior example with the woman and the man who was skeptical, they are family. So I sort of violated my gut feeling when it came to him. But
this is your humanity part, right?
Absolutely.
Where you want to help people who are coming to you anyway.
Right, exactly. Okay. So this waitress, her grandmother came through with specific messages and names, and and she lost it, and she was very grateful for the experience, to the point where she ended up going to different people that night, waitresses, and they would come over to the table like, "Okay, do you need more water?" Yeah. Like, "I'm not going to be reading you right now."
"Do you need more water? Do you have another message for me?"
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm off duty, but
here's my number afterwards.
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, one of them said, I'm off in 10 minutes, but I'm like, I'm not. This is my day off.
But this also, but with what they're doing is that they really are searching themselves, yes. Right? So you find that people are searching for answers, not only to connect and feel better about the ones that they've lost, but also with who we are.
Right.
Because I think that when you said we all have it inside us, mm-hmm. but we don't know it, so everyone's trying to explore it. But then when we think about the intuition or the spiritual, we are thinking of like Harry Potter and a little stick,
exactly,
and shooting lasers.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Exactly. Yes. In fact, I get a lot of people asking, a very popular question: what is my purpose?
Yeah.
What is my mission here? What am I here to do? So these are people that have careers, they may be like anesthesiologists or, plumbers or whatever it may be, they have a role, but that's not what they're asking about. They're asking about their spiritual journey and what it is that they're here to do. What is their purpose?
Is that a common question that you get?
Believe it or not, it is.
That is more common. Mm-hmm. So, but it's funny how people keep that to themselves. So when we go out there and someone's a doctor or someone's a race car driver, and they don't tell you that. They say, "I'm a race car driver and here's my trophy," but they never tell you that I'm exploring.
Exactly. Oh gosh. Some of the most troubled people out there are the ones that have dedicated 99.9% of themselves to the secular realm. So from a physical standpoint, we see them as successful. They have the house, they have the car, they have the bank accounts. But within, they're just not where they want to be.
And that's because they probably were told, I want to be this when I'm older, and they followed the path. They went to school, went to college, university, did their MD, whatever they were supposed to do. And that was just because that was the railroad, right? It was just like, this is the path that we are all forced to follow because we think that that's right.
Exactly.
Versus being the free spirit.
Right. Exactly. Yes. And a lot of those people will, when they meet me, when we begin to talk, they soon realize, okay, this is something that I need to do. Yeah. And it does change them, for the better, because then they learn about themselves on a deeper level, not just as a physician, not just as a parent, as an individual. Yeah. And I think that most of us spend a great deal of our lives not really diving into questioning, or wondering, who am I?
Yeah. How accepting with your life, obviously with your child and your husband, how accepting are people of this gift? Is it something that's very challenging as a couple to put together? Is it something that flows very naturally? Is it his world, your world? Is it kept separate worlds?
Interestingly, I'm very thankful, grateful to God that I do have a husband and a child too, that they understand. At first, when we first met, I was still having these really difficult acercamientos, these closeness, experiences. We would go out to, let's say, a restaurant, and, a couple would come in, and I would just, this energy, I would just have to run out of there. And sometimes even leave him sitting there just eating alone for a few minutes while I just ran around and just, tried to sort of get rid of that feeling, sensation. Right? Yeah. Thankfully, the more I read and the more I'm able to do this, the less pressure, if you will, the hose has. Got it. Right? So you have this release valve. Yes. And that does help a lot. I haven't felt any of that in years, actually.
So do you try to explain it, as you're feeling the feeling, or more about trusting intuition? Do you try to explain that, though?
I do. It's really important for people to not question the thoughts that come through. Yes. As weird and strange as they may seem. I had a client that, before she became a client, and this is part of what happened, I asked her if there was something wrong with her tongue. How, that's an example of, wait a second, Carly, why are you thinking that? Yeah.
You didn't go with the thing and grab it and pull it out, just take a look.
But of all things, doesn't it sound absolutely just out of this?
That's right.
And she confirmed that she had tongue cancer. And I was just as floored as she was, because I had never even heard of tongue cancer. Yeah. I mean, you don't hear these types of things. I know that you can create, people have cancers all over the body, but tongue cancer, it's just not really uncommon. Spoken about.
Yeah, it sounds very uncommon.
Right. It's not talked about. So, that's how we became, we got to know each other more. She was comfortable with me. I was comfortable. And that's an example of how you have to just sort of go with whatever your gut is telling you. And that beautiful thing that you decide to do and say, okay, you know what? For some reason, I am just being, I'm feeling like I need to say this. Here you go. Yeah. As strange as it may sound. And that is how people develop intuition.
Yeah. Wow. So normal life. So normal life, you're doing your going out for meals, being a normal person. Mm-hmm. Is there times where you just want to be within those boundaries of just without trying to have the intuition on? Is there times where you just want to feel like you're just you and your family, a normal person going out, and don't want to think about other people's problems because you have to take care of yourself too?
Always. Always. I always feel that way. And it's not because this bothers me or because it's really difficult. No. We all want to have a little off button sometime. I don't have that. It can be morning, noon, night, evening, it doesn't matter where I am. I could be in an airport. It doesn't matter where I go, if it's a red eye, if it's a daytime flight, wherever I am. It happens all the time.
What about when you see people who are going through hardship and you can see that it's a lot less than what they believe it is, but you carry that burden for them? Are you carrying that burden for them, or are you feeling guilty because obviously you're a human being too, and you're going to feel guilty that somebody's really struggling with whether it's a sickness or it's a marriage problem or it's something else going on? That guilt, is there a guilt inside your part of you that feels bad while trying to do this?
I used to feel that a lot more than I do now. And what has helped me is I have to release, and I just have to say, okay, God, take the wheel for them. And this is something that you need to, it's between you both. And I'm here just to help. Because at first, yes, it would affect me in such great way that I would then, end up texting my client back maybe, in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and I do have a handful of them that, are, maybe we're very close to suicide, or, I don't have the time to reach out to people. Because of everything, the secular life, in addition to the spiritual world that just keeps me busy with new, other people and readings. But I've had to learn to let go. Yeah. You cannot keep that, because then it begins to affect you, not just on a spiritual level, but on a physical level.
Yeah. It's when I see people, when I've in the past, when I've seen people coming in with problems, even in the office that we have here, when I see people coming in the problem, there is a part of me that also feels very bad for what they're going through, and it really does challenge you, because you want to be a helping person. When you have a gift, or you believe that you're able to help someone, it does become very very hard to let go.
Exactly.
It really does. Mm-hmm. And that part about getting sick, I think a lot of people don't know how to stay in their lane. Calm while you're going out, and I want to go for dinner and I don't want to think about anything else, and this is who I am.
Right.
Do you also find that the people who are going through this now, when you're the person who can help them, are trying to cling on to you more and more?
Absolutely. Oh yes, I have I've had to have that conversation with some clients.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because I've been asked, can I do this on a weekly,
They're going to call you every 3 hours.
Right? Yes. And see, the problem with that is, can you imagine if everybody did that? It would be, super challenging for me. But in addition to that, I think that they also need that time to, part of the problem is codependency sometimes. Yes. So they're trying to break away from some other codependent relationship, and then they come to me, and then they do the codependency with me, right? So if we're trying to solve that, and that's where my background in counseling and psychology also kicks in, because and then that helps me, because I know exactly how to deal with the situation.
Do you think that human beings, as we're going through the world, if I go to the store at 11 p.m. at night and I don't realize that I'm doing something that's safe, but in my mind, and we just need more guidance? Do you feel like there's a lack of guidance of what people are experiencing in the real world, without anyone telling them this is the path or this is what you should be doing? Do you feel like people are lacking that?
I think that a great majority, I think that some people do. Yes, they do lack that. And I feel that the people that lack that are the people that are not very, open to intuition.
Got it. That's interesting. Yeah, so their minds would be closed, right? Rather than just feeling I need to do this or I need to go this way or that way.
Exactly.
Because but it's like where we're trained as kids growing up, or adolescents growing up, we're always trained that the teacher tells us what to do. I get to school, meet your counselor now will guide you.
Exactly.
But do you think that interferes with kind of us trusting our intuition?
I do feel that it does. And primarily because depending on who the counselor is, because you could find one that doesn't know what she's doing herself versus one who's trusting herself. Exactly. Sorry, and who's intuitive on top of that,
there
right? You go. I do feel that, and the traditional way that we learn, society it doesn't allow for children to really express themselves, explore themselves. Everything is taught in a very traditional way. And I feel that if you allowed a child to, and with discipline still,
Yes.
I mean, because we're talking two different things. But if you just allowed children to be who they are without instilling this type of, I guess, the teaching, the style, the teaching, I think that more people would find that as they grow, they have a different, an opportunity to really, just be different, to be themselves a bit more.
And trust themselves, right?
Exactly, yes.
So when you're doing, and I keep going back to the growing up part, but growing up, like with your family, seeing this, and if you see other kids who were doing this, or people, like parents who are seeing their children with gifts, how should they be reacting to this if parents don't understand it? There's a little awkward, but it's like your child is seeing something or feeling something, and then your parents are saying, no, you have to go to school, and I wore a tie every day and I went to work. How should parents react to their children at this?
I would say just be very open-minded. There's nothing wrong with, encouraging. I did it to my own, son, go to school, do this, do that, get your degree, get your career, your job. But at the same time, I've given him the encouragement to use his own gifts as well. We've talked about that. Now, whether he wants to do that or not, that's on him, But I would encourage parents to really be open-minded and to do as much as possible, to really explore if they haven't had family members or friends around them that have gone through something like this. Try to help your child, understand them. It's not all about Ritalin, about ADHD, about ADD, about, it's not all about that. And that's where we as a society make a mistake to say, okay, this child is, like me, when I was 4, I needed to jump out of my chair when I felt something and I just didn't know how to just express it.
And they would tie you up, huh?
They would
keep her there. She's about to go again.
Right? Well, funny stories. Yes. When I was about 3 or 4, I would come downstairs. My parents, like on a Saturday morning, let's say, my parents would still be asleep. And I would come downstairs, grab a chair and, undo the locks and stuff. And I would need to run outside and just, and it was nothing secular. And now I understand, looking back, it was this child needing to find a way to discover what was going on and to release it and to express that. And so my message to parents would be, think beyond the secular world. It may be more than a disease, a disorder, just be open-minded.
Yeah, because I found, like, even with my parents, like when I was growing up, it was very challenging because they said, no, you're not feeling anything, you're not seeing anything. And it's not, no, it's in your imagination. And I was sleeping downstairs. We had a room downstairs, and I would be scared, like a little 10-year-old sleeping in my room, and I was hearing noises, or in your mind, you're very paranoid. But my parents were very, no, it's nothing. It's your imagination. It's your imagination. And I felt like that was a kind of a problem, or them not understanding themselves what it is, or not wanting to acknowledge it.
Right. Oh, yeah. As a child, I used to go to the parochial school. And as part of that, we would go to church. Okay. And we would sit there, and obviously the priest would be, doing his, the service. And so I would see him talking and this, and I would just follow his arm and I would see this that I did not know. I didn't know what it was. But I would see an outline to his body. Every time he'd move, I see it more. And I recall asking a classmate, do you see that he has, and just obviously, like, what are you talking about? It was his aura. Yeah. And from very early on, I could see, and I still do. Sometimes, I'm in the living room and my husband picks something up and I see it.
Yeah, and you're staring
and
at
it takes, right? Yes, and it's interesting. But I mean, this is 40 years later.
Yeah.
But a child who's about 5 and has those experiences feels so alone. Because you oftentimes can't find people that, number one, share your same experiences, and number two, if they don't, people that are open to it.
Yeah. Because you feel like the child would feel like it's normal, right? They would think that everybody is seeing the same thing, right? And I think there's been stories where children are talking to somebody on the side and they say, "Hey, well, it's in your imagination. It's not real." But there really is them thinking of it as more normal,
right?
Versus us thinking that it's normal.
Exactly, right. Wow. Well, it's like someone who's maybe colorblind. If no one's ever told them, if they grew up in a place where no one mentioned anything, to them that world is normal. It's their world.
Yes,
it's their normal experience.
Yeah. So, what would you say, like, to people who are wanting to explore this, wanting to learn more? Like, is it what would you tell people today, or young people?
Yeah, well, we're blessed with technology nowadays. When I grew up, we didn't have anything. You couldn't Google anything. But there's so much out there. So much on the internet. So many books and so many people. This is a prime example of people that are willing to talk about this. People that are exposing people to it. And more people are becoming more and more comfortable. And so I would encourage people, read, talk to people, form parts of these meditation groups, go to this retreat, learn about it, and just embrace it. Because that's something that I really didn't have growing up. And I'm pretty sure that perhaps maybe things were limited with your experience.
Oh, there was no one. It was zip. Don't say anything.
Exactly. Right. Yes.
Carly, I want to thank you very much for sharing your stories with us.
Thank you for
I appreciate all your help over the last few years.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you so much. It's been a blessing being here, and I appreciate you having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.